Good morning, friend. This morning session is dedicated to all of us, to all the children, to all the language lover. This is a very instructive, elaboration. Friends, contentment is the real juice of life. You may wonder where we are leading to. The materialistic pursuit of man has made him insane and mad. He has lost the conscience to develop peace and tranquility of mind. Man has been wandering in the rat race of possessing more and more, accumulating more and more wealth. His greed and temptation has completely ruined his peace of mind. The modern man has never been contented and satisfied with his achievement. He is always greedy of more and more. As a result, he doesn't have peace of mind. There is a story of Leo Tolstoy. This is a Russian story in which there was a poor peasant. He led a very peaceful and contented life. He lived in peace and prosperity. He had a very small piece of land on which he grew crops and lived with his family very peacefully. But one day he saw another farmer, his neighbor, having lot of land and having lot of crops and possessions. He became envious and jealous of that farmer. The moment he became envious of that farmer, his mind and desire went on acquiring some more piece of land and become a competitor of his neighbor. In an attempt to acquire some more piece of land, he one day decided to meet the chief of the tribal land. He wandered a bit ahead of his farmhouse. Then he found a big piece of land that was possessed by the chief of the tribes, who also lived there. One day he took a big gift to the chief of the land and gave him. The chief of the land became very happy. But then he pleaded the chief of land that he wanted some more land because he is having a very small piece of land. The chief promised that he would give him all the part of the land that he would travel around, but he should start his journey the next morning, and till evening whatever land he will walk over will be his own. The farmer, the greedy farmer, next day started his journey walking on the part of the land without taking breakfast and without taking any meal. He went on traveling. He didn't take a second rest, went on traveling because he wanted more and more land to travel on so that it would become his own. And therefore he traveled continuously without taking any rest the whole day. The sun was scorching heat. It was very difficult to sustain the heat of the sun, but he went on. He pressed on and walked and walked. By the evening, he walked a bigger piece of land, but then he was quite thirsty and hungry, and he was completely exhausted. In the evening, his thirst and hunger became extreme, and his tiredness also didn't help him anymore. Before he could walk the entire land, he fell down and collapsed. The group of farmers who had gathered to see him and applaud his victory were surprised to know what had happened. He collapsed and died at the moment. The part of the land that he needed was 6 by 4 feet. That was enough for burying his dead body. When the tribal people buried his dead body, they exclaimed, saying, the man had traveled all the land, but he could acquire only 6 feet by 4 feet, which was good enough for burying his dead body. And thus this story teaches us the lesson that we can have only the peace of mind when we are contented and when we are not hungry of accumulating and possessing more and more. The poor farmer couldn't have more than 6 by 4 feet of land, which was good enough for burying his body. He traveled on a larger piece of land, but ultimately he could not possess it because his greed couldn't sustain his stamina. He fell down, collapsed, and died. So this story also teaches us that the modern man, in the rat race of acquiring more and more, has lost his peace of mind and tranquility, and ultimately he doesn't gain anything. The gain is nothing but a frustration and jealousy that surrounds him. So the best way to lead a peaceful life is to have contentment with whatever we have. Life is really enjoyable when we find out some time to refresh ourselves in the sunshine and in the glory of the beauty of the nature. Sit and meditate for some time and introspect what we are meant for. God has sent us for what? The purpose of doing goodness to the society and living a contented life. Of course, looking after our, loved ones, but not at the cost of, ruining our own peace of mind and tranquility. So the best way to lead a contented life is to have satisfaction and contentment with whatever we have, not to, not to fall into the rat race of time and money, and not to acquire and not to attempt to acquire everything that is around us, because it is not possible for one to conquer the entire world. There is a limitation of one's ability and one's possession, and whatever God has given is good enough for peace and tranquility. And therefore, in the lap of nature, finding some time to refresh ourselves will be the best idea to live a peaceful life. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead.